We're live.
Oh no. Good thing
Oh,
I wore
yes.
pants.
Yes and no. Yes and no. So we are live. It's an all Nova Scotia show.
Yeah, I'm back in Nova Scotia for a little while.
Yay. All right, so we'll also start recording here. We'll go over the stuff that we talked about. And I don't want to keep you too long because you got family there.
I do.
And welcome to Habs Unfiltered. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvey, and I'm joined now by my co-host, Treg Wilson.
Hello, everyone.
It's episode 274. We are recording live on YouTube, and we're going to talk a little bit about the training camp, expectations, who should wear the C, what Doc's contract be like, and whatever else fills our empty brains. But before we get started, you're home, you're in Nova Scotia, you're visiting family.
Well, they're visiting me. So, yeah, my nephew's getting married next weekend, so I'm here, and I'm going to go to that. Our family's here. My sister's down from Quebec, and I'm here from Ottawa, and good, fun time.
Should be a good time.
Should be. I'm also
Is it
on
an
a
open
prep,
bar?
Well, I'm not drinking, so I'm on a prep, so I'm not even eating the.
I'm not asking for you.
Food. Oh. I don't know. I don't know if it's an open bar. I don't think so, but
Should be.
I don't know. It's in Elmsdale. I don't know. I don't know what they do out there.
Elmsdale? Yeah, definitely not open bar.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Oh, so people are asking for the code to join in our Zoom. No, sorry. That's not what we're going to do. We're on the live. We will record separately so that we can put this out to all the different platforms, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. So while we do appreciate the comments that are in the YouTube chat, we won't be allowing people into the Zoom call. Sorry. So let us begin. The first thing we can talk about maybe is Kirby Dach's contract.
Yeah.
What we expect. So what do you expect for Kirby Dach?
I'm expecting around 2.5 on a bridge deal, 2 to 3 year bridge deal. That's what I'm expecting. I mean, I know Keiko got what, 2.1, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 2.2.
Yeah, and they put up similar numbers, but where he's in Montreal, there's a little bit more tax. Yes, I know he gets paid in American dollars, but still, there's, I think he'll get around 2.5 is what I'm expecting.
For how many years?
3.
3? Okay. I'm more of thinking more like a 2-year deal, somewhere between 1.75 and 2.25, somewhere in that range. And it gives them a little bit more leeway, I think, with the RFA years at the end of the deal, so that I think 2 years is plenty of time to
evaluate
them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Especially with St. Louis being the coach and the style of game that he's going to want them to play. I think it fits really well with what Dach can do.
Well, now that they have Monahan, you can put them on a line together, and because it's going to come down to face-offs for Dach. Like if Dach can't win face-offs, like at least get up to close to 50%, then I don't see him being a future center. And if that's the case, at least with a guy like Monahan there, who is a 50 to 55% face-off guy, You have that insurance that if you're on an icing in your own zone, you got a guy who can probably win the face off as opposed to a guy who normally doesn't win the face off. And then Monahan can work with Doc on that part of his game. I think another thing Doc's going to have is he's going to get the minutes. Like in Chicago, he got bumped down to the third, fourth line, and he played the wing there near the end of the season. And there's just a lot of changes with him, and I think that affected his game. His wrist, of course, affected his game. So it's going to be interesting to see what St. Louis does. And we all know that St. Louis has been adamant about putting development over wins. Where he's not going to sacrifice development to get wins. I think it's going to be a big learning experience for everyone. And I think Doc's one of those guys that's going to benefit the most from it.
Yeah, in my opinion, the reason why his faceoffs suffered last season, there's a couple of reasons. One, the team sucked. So Chicago was just horrible. Now, and the other larger reason behind it is that wrist injury. He didn't quite recover from it properly. I think they rushed him back. I know he played 70 games last year, but they didn't give him the full amount of time he needed to rehab and get ready, even though they were completely out of it. I believe that now with the long off season that he's had time to work on his wrist a little bit. So I'm expecting better things. I don't think a 50% rate is going to be where he ends up. I think it's going to be more along the lines of what Suzuki had when he was first starting out with the Canadiens, around 45-ish. Now Suzuki's about 50%. So you give him a little bit of time. That's the things that they need to develop. Overall, I think the style of game that he plays fits in well with what St. Louis wants offensively out of the team. And I think you're 100% right. I think Monahan is going to be a guy that they're going to graft onto his line to support him, not just for faceoffs, but I think having a veteran who knows what to do, who knows how to play a little bit of defense, who can mentor him in that position will go a long way.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, Monahan, he's going to be looking to prove something too. So he's going to want to have a big year. And I mean, I can't off the top of my head tell you what Doc's line mates were, but I know if he wasn't playing with the Brincat or Kane or Taves, then he wasn't getting any points. Because really, they were the only guys getting points for Chicago. So at least he's going to be now. We're going to get into this later, but at least he's going to be with people that can help him with his point production, help him with his face-offs, help him with his two-way game, because Monahan's a good two-way center. And that's the key to a guy like Doc. And I think it's going to a lot of the guys coming in, like, and again, we'll get to it later, like even Caulfield, maybe Slavkovsky, if he's on the team, it's going to be big learning experience. And I wouldn't be surprised if St. Louis matches them up with a veteran, you know what I mean, that plays their similar type game or the game that he thinks that they should be playing, because he's very big on individual development, like not just team. Like, yes, we have a team concept, not a team system. However, as an individual, you need to know what to do. You know what I mean? You got to use your skill to make this concept better. And I think that's what St. Louis is pointing to. And so you got a big guy like Doc who can skate, who can hit, he can do all the things he needs to do. It's just getting the face-offs down, getting consistent scoring, and just seeing where this guy is. Like, you know, is he a 25, 50-point guy, or is he a third-line center that's, 15, 30 points? You know what I mean? Like, where are we with this Doc? He projects to be the 25, 50, 60-point guy. He's a third overall pick, maybe more. I'm just lowballing all the stats because I don't want to overhype anyone. But they don't know. They don't know because he hasn't had the chance to prove what he could really do in Chicago with his injuries and, rough year last year because of his injuries and all this kind, and because of the team was just a shit team. And yeah, so let's see. Not that Montreal's going to be a non-shit team this year, but I think their offensive group is actually a pretty good group. So
Yeah, I think that's the big difference between the
yeah,
Canadians and the Blackhawks from last season. Yeah, Montreal's going to have a hard time this year, but offensively, they have plenty of support for these young guys
mhm.
that they can complement the younger player.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to be key, and I think that's what's going to be. I mean, I think people are going to see a big difference in Montreal's offense this year. It's going to be a lot better, and it's not going to be the reason they lose games. That's for sure.
No, well, I mean, there's going to be some games where they didn't get that goal they needed near the end or
Well,
whatever, but yeah,
yes,
it's
but
little things like that.
yeah, yeah.
But you're right.
So,
It's not the offense is going to be the stronger part of their game this season.
correct, correct.
And with Doc, to finish off my thought on him a little bit, with his wrist, there's a reason why he didn't score too many goals. It's because of that. So if his wrist is strengthened back up and recovered, his shot will be recovered. And then if he's able to shoot properly, defenses are going to have to defend on that as well, which makes it a little bit easier for him to make the passes that he wants to make, because now they're not just cheating to the pass. It's
Yeah,
these little things. And so I'm expecting a better year out of him. I'm not saying it's going to be a 60, 70 point season, but if by the end of the year, Kirby Dach is able to play second line minutes, he has about 45% on the faceoff dot, and he has somewhere close to 50 points. I think that's a huge win.
oh, well, I mean, I would even say if he has anywhere between 35 and 45, that's a huge win, considering he only had 23 points last year, playing, all over the place.
Yeah.
I think consistency and confidence. Another thing that goes with his wrist injury, and you were saying about his shot, is the confidence. If he gets his confidence back in his shot, uh, you're going to see those goals go up, because at first they will be cheating the pass, right? So, uh, sorry, dog. Hold on.
Suzuki is just working away. Someone must be at the door.
Yeah, my sister just came. So they will be cheating the pass, because they're like, oh, well, this guy's going to pass. He has no confidence in his shot, and then he's going to start shooting. They're going to like, oh shit, now he has confidence. You know what I mean? So it's going to be it's going to be a different year. I think you're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of players. And if the Canadians are big on the development, like they say they want to be, it's only going to get better for Doc next year.
Now, staying with that idea of the centers, with Monahan coming in, I mean, he just had his first introduction to the Montreal media there the other day with the Habs TV bit where he was eating plain unbuttered toast for breakfast.
I was disappointed. I expected the Montreal Canadiens symbol in the toast, like the toaster makes there, like the Canadiens toaster makes, and they didn't have that. So to me, that's a miss by the Canadiens.
I think they avoided doing that, because if they did that, the toast wouldn't have been boring enough.
I don't know why
you got to play up the boring.
Why are you eating toast? Like, why did someone say, "Oh, eat some toast so we can take a picture of it"?
If anyone's followed Monahan at all over the last few years or been on Twitter, there's a boring Monahan Twitter account.
Yes.
And the joke is that Monahan is just a boring guy. And I think he's playing up to that. Like he plays into that hand. Like, this is just one of those things. People call me boring. Let's have fun with it. I think that's what he's doing with that. And he's continuing it.
Sure.
At the very least, it's still more exciting than the last guy to wear number 91.
Who was the last guy to wear 91? Gomez. Yes. Scott. Wow. At least we only got.
He's almost got as many goals.
At least we only got this
he's
guy
almost
for
got as
1
many
year.
goals. Yeah. I wonder if we're going to get a shot at McLean's Pub for every goal that Monahan scores.
Hopefully it's more than 2 or 3.
Oof, I'm hoping for a 30-goal season.
But going back to centers,
yeah,
they have 5, but don't forget Monahan probably won't even be playing until the 1st of November, so he's going to miss probably the first 2-3 weeks of the season. So that'll give a chance for Suzuki, Dvorak, everyone to get their game going, and then Monahan will come in, and I think there'll be a rotation of in and outs with Evans and whoever else. So yeah, and I think Monahan's going to play a lot of wing. There's going to be a lot of movement there. Like, I don't know if Montreal is going to get rid of someone, but they have way too many wingers. And if Monahan and Doc are going to flip back and forth to the wing, depending on what team they're playing and, blah, 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 something's got to give, because they got way too much money that's going to be sitting in a press box doing nothing, especially if guys like Joel Armia and Paul Byron, when he gets back, Mike Huffman, Dadanov, you got all these guys who probably should be playing on the third line that are going to have to be like, well, we don't have room on the third line for you, because the Slavkovsky makes the team. There's another winger that's going to be Yolonen. We're going to get into this, but there's all these, either something got to give now, or anyway, we'll get into it later because we're going to talk about the whatever.
Okay.
But
staying with Monahan, though,
this
Monahan is the thing that we'll get to the forwards here in a minute. But staying with Monahan, there's talk that, okay, now that Monahan's here, Dvorak is expendable, which, sure, I can see that. If Monahan has a good season, I can see that. But if Monahan has a good season, aren't the Canadians better off trading him when he's having a good year to get some of the get some prospects and whatever else they can get, versus signing him to a longer term deal, just in case he doesn't really repeat that next year or the year after? Like, how many years does he want in a deal? How much money does he need? At least with Dvorak, you know what the term is, what the heck the cap it is. He's a little bit younger. That you got a two-way guy who can support the younger centerman by taking some of that defensive time away. Whereas with Monahan, you're just not sure. So if he has a good year, why not just trade him?
Well, I know there's been, ever since we got Monahan, there was this talk that, we should sign him long-term. We need to sign him long-term. We got Monahan. Monahan hasn't been the same. Monahan had one really good season. Let's be honest here. Like, Monahan had the 30-goal season and whatever it was, and he hasn't really done anything since. Well, it hasn't really done anything.
He's had a couple of 30-goal years, and he's been a 20-goal scorer almost every year.
Yeah.
When he was healthy, he was a 70-point two-way center.
When he was healthy. But that's when my point. Healthy. He hasn't been healthy in a while, right?
Yeah.
So, if you look, you look at Monahan, he had 2 30-goal seasons, 3. I suppose 82 points is his highest point. But other than that 82-point season, his highest was 64. So, is he going to get back to that? On average, he averages 57 points, 26 goals in 82 games. And he hasn't played 82 games since 2016-17. So
let's, for the sake of argument, we'll say that come trade deadline, it's 2 days before the trade deadline. The next game for the Canadians is after the trade deadline, and he sits at 15 goals and 35 points. If someone offers you a first-round pick, trade him.
Or even a B-level prospect or an A-level prospect, trade him.
Some combination, yeah.
Because you can sit there and say, unless they have an extension already in the works before the trade deadline, you have no idea maybe he doesn't want to play in Montreal. Maybe he doesn't want to play for a rebuilding team. Monahan's he's 28 years old. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year veteran. You know what I mean? Like, injury prone.
Like, what a play. Yeah. He hasn't won a cup yet. Maybe he wants to win a cup.
Maybe he wants to go to Colorado or someone who's gonna, whatever. But there's at least with Dvorak, you know exactly what you're getting for the next 3 years. And you have him for the next 3 years. You have him right up to you should be a contender. And then you can decide on Dvorak, like, well, do we want to keep him or do we want to get rid of him to bolster, what we already have?
Because
And
the Canadians already got a first round pick for just taking him on. If they're able to trade him and get another, that's a home run for Hughes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing is Dvorak, according to Dumont, Mark Dumont was the highest offensive forward of the Canadians under Marc St. Louis when he came back from the injury.
He could be capable of more than a 40-point season.
I mean, he was injury hampered. He came into a new system. We all know a lot of the players weren't happy with Ducharme's system. According to Ducharme, he didn't know what direction the team really wanted him to go.
Being the coach, he should be the one setting that.
While he was trying to win games, he didn't realize that they didn't care about winning games. I mean, weren't winning
after a while.
Anyway, whatever. Ducharme will be back in the NHL with someone, at least as an assistant coach somewhere. I'm not worried about Ducharme, but everything was it wasn't a happy locker room. And we both play sports. If you don't have a good locker room, not that nobody tries, but the effort just isn't as there. And I'm not saying anyone didn't put the effort in, and Dvorak had injury issues. He had multiple injuries and missed different times with injuries. And then when he finally come back after, I think his concussion was the last one, wasn't that the hit to the head there in front of the net?
Yeah.
And he played under Martin St. Louis. Like everybody else, totally different game, totally different player. Everything was improved. So there's no reason to think that won't continue. With Monahan, I mean, if you got Monahan on pace for back to what he was of old, like I'm not saying he's going to get 30 goals, but if he comes back after missing 3 weeks and he's on pace for 30 goals, on pace for 80 points, why would you keep them when you can guarantee get a first round pick for him? On a rebuilding
and maybe
team.
Even a 2023.
Yeah. On a rebuilding team. You know what I mean? You're rebuilding. Yeah. You're not trying to contend tomorrow, right? Especially now with Carey Price probably not in the picture. You don't even have a goaltender. So going forward. So, you really got to look at it as, and I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, but if he's playing this good, you're not guaranteed he's going to play that good next year. You're not guaranteed he's not going to go out next year and after 4 games bust his hip again or get another injury. He's an injury-prone player, right? And especially the last 3 years. And he's hitting 30. He's going to be 30 at the beginning of 23, 24. So
his age doesn't match up with the Canadians' core. I know the Habs need some veteran help, but you don't need high-priced veteran help. You don't need a guy you're spending $5.5 to $7 million on to be a veteran leader.
Correct. I mean, you want a guy like what Stahl was 21, 22, the year they went to the Cup, 2021. You want what Stahl was or what Corey Perry was. That's what you want. A guy you're going to pay maybe $2 million tops for 2 years, maybe 2 maximum years, who's just there to help put that team over the edge, maybe, or he's that tipping point on the team to get them to their goal. You don't want a guy who's going to sign 5-6 years at $5.5 million at the low end. I mean, because if he's on pace for 30 goals, 70 points, why would he want the same contract that he already has? He's going to sit there and go, well, look at me. I'm the same guy I was 5 years ago. I made $6.5 million. I made $6.5 million then. I want 6.5. I want 7 now because this guy over here, he gets 7 and he did the same. He did what I did. Right. So, and then you're in the situation that you're in right now. You have too many high priced people that are taking up spots of guys that you need to really put in there.
There's no cap left to sign the younger guys like Caulfield, for instance. Barron's going to need a contract in another year or so. These are guys that you need to extend. Doc will need a contract. on and on and on. So
you're going to have to replace Edmondson. You're going to have to replace
yeah,
in the next couple of years. You're going to have to replace Weidman in the next couple of years. You have Gooley, all these guys that are coming in this year. They're all going to need contracts for the next 2 years. So
that's why you have to kind of think 3 or 4 years down the line. Sure, if the guy's doing well, it makes sense now. But what about 2 years from now? So if you can get something of value in return now, do it. Because it's not like there isn't, like we said, there's Dvorak that's there. Doc is still going to be progressing. You've got Beck coming up. There's a relief. Not to mention, who are they going to pick with all these first round picks? Like the Habs are expected to pick in the top 10. If they do, I think 8 of the 10 players in the top 10 this year are centers.
And
so there's another center.
And almost everyone in this year's top 10 could potentially be in the NHL next year because it's that deep of a draft. Potentially could. We say that now. We'll see in March, April. But
that's the thing. Like, you have this depth of centers that are coming up. The picks that they have, they're able to get even more. Do you really want to spend $5-6 million on a center who's going to be 30 soon? And if Monahan doesn't play well, his contract's up at the end of the year, and you let him walk, or you sign him to a Corey Perry type deal,
or you trade him and say, "Hey, we'll give you a second round pick." All right, we'll take the second round pick. Sure,
take whatever you can. Yeah. And if no one wants him, you let him walk. Like, there's no real downside.
No, and like you said, if he does play mediocre, he plays okay, he's whatever, but he really helps with the development of Doc and maybe Suzuki even, or a couple. You sit there and say, you know what, we'll give you 2 years at 1.5. You know what I mean? Let's take it, and sure, sign him. But you don't have to get rid of Dvorak if you do that. So
no, you don't. And that kind of brings us to the forward situation that you were alluding to earlier. The Canadians have 16 NHL forwards, 16. Anyways, 15 or 16 under NHL contract. Then you have the rookies. So Slavkovsky is one, Ylonen, Harvey Pinard. These are guys that could compete for NHL jobs, but there's just too many NHL contracted forwards.
And there's too many NHL contracted forwards making above $3 million playing bottom 6 minutes. That's
all the
issue.
middle tier of players that are making like the $2 to $4.5 million.
Like, you have Huffman at $4.5 million. You have Byron at $3.5 million, who's the end of the year. He's either gone. His contract's over anyway. You have Armia at $3.5 million, who still has another year left on his contract. You have Dvorak's around $4 million. You have all these guys. You have Gallagher, $6.5 million, and he's probably going to play on the third line, third or second, depending. You have all the Druin, $5.5 million. But again, he's an expiring contract. So you have all these guys making all this big bucks playing, bottom 6
middle
minutes.
of the pack.
Middle of the pack. And you have guys like Ylonen. He needs to start, you got to start giving him the chance to show what he can do. I thought he did well when he was in the NHL last year, with the 12 or 13 games he played in. He had 5 points, a couple goals. His shot looked good. Yes, he had some work to do, but that's fine. You progress. Slavkovsky, if he comes in and blows away camp and he's the guy everyone thinks he's going to be, there's your 17th forward on the roster. Jan Mysak, who's been having an excellent season, he could potentially come in but he's a center. You already have 5 centers. Where is he going to go? Right? Harvey Pinard. Is Harvey Pinard ready to step it up and be an NHL winger? But
after his season last year, he led the team in points in Laval. I think he's ready to compete for that spot.
And he's a perfect bottom 6 player for the Montreal Canadiens. Michael Pezzetta. Pezzetta's on an NHL contract. He's one of the 16, but he's a good 4th line player that's going to, not afraid to drop the gloves, not afraid to throw the body, not afraid to get dirty. I can't think of anyone else really right now. But you have, I mean, then you have all the guys that that are going to be coming up within the next year. You have like your kidneys and your Waz and your Condetta and your Heineman there that they got from Calgary. Teasdale, another guy. If he's healthy, if he can stay healthy, he could be a guy that can
maybe push, maybe.
But with all this glut of forwards, where there's no room for these guys, and now you're keeping them down, like Harvey Pinard, you're keeping him down in Laval, where he probably should be starting doing his NHL development or start doing his NHL. You know, there's nowhere for him to go unless someone gets injured. Now Byron, one of the 16, he's going to be probably on LTIR till Christmas, maybe. There's no word out, but that's the rumor. So if there's, even then, it doesn't give you a spot. It doesn't give you a place to put anyone. It's just,
Yeah, what would be helpful is if they had a little bit of an opening there where they were able to rotate these young guys in and out, because maybe they're not quite ready, but you want to give them that chance. So you bring them up, you let them play a couple games in a top 9 role on the wing.
Yeah,
you give them a few games and then you send them back down, because you want to take advantage of this, the waiver exemption, because Ylönen's going to be waiver exempt, I think, for about half the season. Then he hits his games mark. And the same thing will go with all the other guys that are going to be coming up and down. So, not to mention, you got massive holes on defense and all these forwards. Maybe it's time to trade a couple just to get something to throw on the blue line.
Well, I mean, they're desperate need of a right-handed defenseman, unless they really feel Barron's going to be the guy. And again, they have to really feel he's going to be the guy. They really only have 2 right-handed defensemen. That's it. I mean, Schueneman can play both sides. Jack-Eye can play both sides if he makes the team. Edmondson can play both sides, but Edmondson's much better on the left. But you don't want to do that, especially if it's going to be a second line right-handed D. Is what you're looking for. Wow, a Canadian second pairing right-handed D, not a real second
contending.
Contending. When I say Canadians, I mean Matheson and Savard are your second line, really your second pair. But
in Montreal,
they're your first pair. So the only one that's really on defense, I mean, we're getting ready for forwards. The only one that's really where they exactly should be is Edmondson. Edmondson's on the second line, left-handed defenseman, perfect spot for him. He can play that. He can do that.
Yeah.
Wideman, third pairing, perfect right-handed guy, power play, perfect spot for him. He can do that. Everybody else is not where they should be. So, but you're absolutely right. If you could take that forward group, and Armia had a good world championship. Maybe you can lean on that and say, hey, we got a guy here, Joel Armia. He has, after this year, only has 1 year left on his contract. We'll eat half of it. You know what I mean? But we want this right-handed too. It doesn't have to be a second pairing guy, but it can be a guy that can fit in Montreal's second pairing, and that gives Barron that chance to, and a guy that they can put as a 7th defenseman. So say Barron hits his stride and takes the bull by the horns, and now you have an extra defenseman. Great. You know what I mean? And it's no, like Matt. I know they got Madison Bowie, but I think Madison Bowie's a Laval. Most of the veterans they have in Laval are not coming back, so I think he's a Laval depth guy.
Yeah. Because the Canadiens management group rightfully are looking to the AHL as a development league, and the best way to develop your young guys is to give them a competitive team, and that's exactly what they're providing in Laval.
Yeah, they're doing the exact opposite of what they did before when old Dufresne was there, or Lefebvre. Sorry, when Lefebvre was there.
Dufresne come out 500 feet of shit the other side.
But But yeah, so this forward group they have. I mean, personally, I would love to see Huffman go somewhere, but at 4.5 million for what he actually provides, I just don't see it. Well, I mean, you know what? You never know. If someone's looking for a good offensive guy for the power play, Huffman's your guy. But then again, he didn't do
Yeah,
much for
well,
our power play, so I don't know. But I don't know, was that Huffman or was that was ever running the power play?
I don't think the power play was that good, but Hoffman didn't do much to improve
Make
it.
it improve
You
it.
can't really
Exactly.
blame him for that. You can't really.
No,
But
but
this year should be different. This year should be different. That they're starting fresh under new coaches for the most part. So there
the,
should be a different look to the power play. Should have a different feel.
the funny thing is it's going to the forward group is at the trade deadline, you possibly are going to lose 4 of them. Right? So now we're going on
Yeah,
that, oh, we got too many. But at the deadline, you have Dadenoff, Byron, Druin, and Monahan. All free agents. All will probably at least 3 of them will be on the move. And
I'm about 90% sure that all 4 will move.
I am as well. I think all 4 will move. The only one I think might not move is Byron, and that's because of his injury history. But
Yeah,
that's
sure.
and that's the only reason why. But if all 4 move, well, then you have 4. But then it's too late because, like you said, the way some guys, unless they wait until then to bring these guys up, they won't have their waiver extension because they'll have too many games in. So it's really, I guess, the best we can hope for players to come up is people to get injured, which you hate to say because you don't want anyone to get injured, you don't want anyone to get hurt, but
I can't see the injury bug hitting them as hard this year as it did last year. I mean, they set NHL records for man games lost last year, but the way they have their forward group, so many people under contract, even if they did, they'd be set. They're a little bit better off depth wise. Like there's no beyond Suzuki and Caulfield right now. There's no NHL contracted player who looks like they could be a first line player.
no.
Now, Slavkovsky, I'm not counting him in this. 1, he's a rookie. 2, yes, he signed his entry level deal, but he hasn't played yet. So we're not really counting him in that group. There's a chance he could become that first line player, but I think putting that kind of pressure on this kid now, too much. So for this year, Suzuki and Caulfield are the only 2 guys that I would say are legitimately capable of playing first line as first line players. Everybody else, at best, is a second line.
At
At
best.
best.
And I would even narrow that down to Anderson.
Yeah. Doc,
Anderson to me,
I can see him possibly being there. So there's 2 more guys. The rest, third liners.
yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you on Doc, but I think he needs a year to prove himself first. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm talking next year, you have 2 first liners and 1 second liner, and everyone else is a third liner or below. Personally, I mean, you could argue Druin could play on the second line, but he's a 50-point guy.
Yeah. I guess. Now, this kind of brings me to our training camp predictions. So we're talking about all these forwards. We're talking about the need for defense. Training camp is about to start with the rookie camp here soon, which I'm going to be really interested to watch because part of the rookie camp is that rookie tournament in Buffalo. And I really want to see how Messard plays and how Slavkovsky shows he belongs. Mysak, all these guys are showing up. So rookie wise, come training camp, what do you expect? What is your prediction?
Rookie wise, I see Slavkovsky making the team out of the gate. Whether he stays with the team is up for debate. I don't think he's going to start on the first line. And I'm going to go back to I don't know if you watched the behind the scenes thing with Habs TV about the draft, but Bob Rov made a good comment. He's the guy that started on the 4th line with Slovakia, but nobody, in his words, was carrying the mail, right? He moved up to that first line, and all of a sudden that whole first line was carrying the mail. Like that, basically, when he moved to the first line, he improved that entire first line, just being on it. Because he's the guy that wants to make the difference. He's the guy that, wait, shit's not going right. I want to be the guy that changes that. So, like, I know what you said about the pressure, but it seems to me like he's the guy that wants the pressure. He's the guy that wants to, like, when they asked him the question, what do you know about Montreal? He said, when everything's going good, right? They love you. When everything's not going good, well, not so much, right? And they said, how do you feel about that? And he said, well, I just have to play good. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, and from what we heard at our seminar when we were at the draft, when they asked him the question about if he wants to go first of all, he just said, I don't care where I'm picked. I just want to be the best player.
Yeah.
To me, that attitude, if that conveys on the ice, there's no reason why he won't make the team.
Yeah, it's a good attitude to have when you're in Montreal, because that's the kind of attitude that would do well there.
Correct. Yes. But other than him, because of so many forwards in that, I don't see too many rookies on forward making the team. Defense, I can see a guy like Arbor Jacki making the team. Caden Gooley. I think when we've discussed this on multiple shows, there's going to be a rotation of those young guys between Laval and Montreal.
Yeah. And I think Gooley's going to be a big part of that rotation. And I know that he had an injury, and I'm addressing JD's question from our live. There's no timeline that was given on his return from an injury. However, the expectation is he's going to be ready for training camp. And the same thing goes with Logan Mailloux. Now, the expectation is not that Mailloux will be at the rookie camp. He's not under contract. So Mailloux will be going to London and just staying there and doing their thing. I think he's at their camp. I'm not 100% sure if he's played any preseason games or not. But for Gooley, at the very least, he's expected to be ready to compete come rookie camp.
Thing with it's going to be interesting in Mailloux, because can he play in the rookie tournament if he's not under contract?
No.
Okay, so I wasn't, because I know he's been visibly doing Montreal Canadian things and showing up at events representing the Montreal Canadiens this summer. He was at the big country concert with Suzuki and Anderson. He's been at other things, so he'll be an interesting person to look at.
Yeah,
but I think he needs a year in London anyway. So regardless of whether he can go to these camps or not, he's not making the team. So whether they sign him to a contract tomorrow or whatever, he needs a year in London regardless, because he hasn't had a full year. He hasn't had a full season in 2 years. He hasn't played more than 20 games a season in 2 years. So
I don't think he's even played 20 games. I think he's got maybe 30 games total in 2 years.
Well, I think he had 12 last year, and I think he played 13 in Sweden. So whatever, I'm guesstimating there, but
so there's like 25 to 30 games total in 2 years.
That's what I'm saying.
He needs more time.
He needs more. He needs way more time.
Yeah.
So regardless, LeMahieu, whether he shows up to these camps or doesn't show up to these camps, it's not going to matter. He is not walking onto that team. So
no. And now the rotation on the lefty, that's going to be an interesting one. Harris and Gooley, I think, are going to be in a heavy rotation there. Arbor Jacki is an interesting one. You mentioned him. I really like his game because he doesn't just play physical. He is mean. He wants to hurt you when you play, so you're scared of him.
He makes you think twice about coming up his side of the ice.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if how he adjusts to the speed of the game, we'll see how he does against in the rookie tournament, because that's not junior anymore. That's all the best players from junior who have taken a step up. So we'll see how he adjusts there. But I think give him a little bit of time, he'll be heavy in that rotation by the end of the year as well.
Now, Arbor Jacki was a late cut from last year's camp because he played very well he did very, very well in Montreal's camp. They just didn't think he was ready to take the next step. I mean, you know me, I'm heavy on Arbor Jacki. I really think he's going to be a bright spot in the future of the Canadians. I think he's one of those hidden gems that Montreal picked up only because of his overall game. I mean, he even picked up his offense in the OHL playoffs last year. I don't think he's going to be this big offensive guy, but he's the guy you need on the team. He's a guy you need, especially now that you don't have Romanov. You don't have this big, heavy hitter on the team. Issues he's going to have is the speed of the game and his discipline. He's very undisciplined in the OHL. Very undisciplined.
Undisciplined in the OHL. The OHL has been doing a lot of these crackdowns on certain plays and certain methods of play. Yeah, the whole sleepy time thing, getting suspended for that.
Yeah.
That's stuff that would not be penalized in the NHL or in the pro ranks.
And having said that, when he did that sleepy thing, once he knew the guy was knocked out, he stopped punching. When they got in that fight, and that guy, he hit him, and that guy went down like a bag of.
But he did do the sleepy time after.
But he stopped. To me, a really undisciplined guy, he keeps going until the refs break it up. He stopped, and then as he skated off, he did his little, which to me is, who cares? Meh.
Well, he'd answer for that in the next fight for, showing up his opponent at the NHL level, sure. But the undisciplined part, I just see it as the OHL being very strict in its calls versus what the NHL would do.
It's true, but
with him.
He did take a few bad penalties last year that were uncalled for.
Of course.
He did pick a fight he did pick a fight at the wrong, and they all do. I mean, his thing's going to be the speed, and like I said, I was talking to Steve Stais, who, if you're listening, Steve, I messaged you to get on the show. He mentioned that will be his. He thinks he told me Arbor Jacki has never been cut from anything. Every camp he's gone to, except last year with Montreal, but they all he expected to be cut from that. He wasn't expecting to make the team. He says he's the guy that gives 110% at everything he does. Everything he does, he gives 110%. And he said there's no quit in him. And he said he's just the guy that you're going to love on your team. You're going to love in the dressing room, on the ice. You're not going to have this whole Primo just got, or who was it? Montebo just got bowled over by this guy, and everyone just looked around and watched. No, he's going to settle that, and he's going to settle it pretty fucking quick. So, sorry, YouTube, for the swearing line, but you're again.
Think of the children.
There's guys ahead of him on the depth chart. Harris, Gooley, Schooneman. I'll even throw Schooneman in.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to really step up his game to get there. And a guy like Yolonen, who I think he should be starting with the NHL this year, but there's just no room for him. He's going to have to.
There's too many forwards. Yeah.
He's going to have to really outplay a lot of people. And it's unfortunate because guys like Armia and Huffman, I'd rather have Yolonen in there than Armia and Huffman. I'd rather have, if you go, Yolonen's only going to get me 13 points. I'd rather it be him than Armia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally.
No, I agree. Because you're doing the rebuild.
Yeah.
Why not have the young guys play? And to JD's point in the live, he mentioned that Jacki reminds him of Alexei Emelin. And
exactly.
I see that.
Yeah.
I see that.
I've compared him to him, Emelin, a few times.
Except this is a guy who can fight, unlike Emelin, who had the metal plate in his face.
This is a guy who will fight.
Yeah.
But Emelin had a metal plate in his face, which is why he didn't fight. So not that I think Emelin was a big fighter anyway, but whatever.
Although Emelin is still doing things to help the Canadians, because you see him in the KHL prior to the season. He took out Michkov, who's going to be out injured for a little while. So maybe Michkov slides down a little bit into the draft and lands in the Canadians' lap, thanks to Alexei Emelin.
Once a Canadian, always a Canadian. But yeah, I think Jacki is going to be the guy you need to look out for. Gooley, Harris, they're going to have NHL time. You know it. Right? Whether it be at the beginning of the season, One of them is going to be there at the beginning of the season, but they're going to be there. Barron's going to be there. Barron's probably going to start the season with Montreal. See where he goes.
Yeah.
Unless they have a really shitty camp. That's the only reason I can see them not being there. Barron, based on the fact they have no right-handed defenseman. But also he played well when he was there in the last 10 games, in the 10 games he played with Montreal last season. So, like you got to give the guy his dues. Like you can't sit there and say, oh, you played well, but now you really got to earn it. Well, I thought I just did. You know what I mean? Like,
and that is kind of the reason why I think they're not going to go out looking for a defenseman to put under contract prior to the season. They want to have him play in the camp, see how he does. They might sign a couple guys to a PTO for the defense. They may not, but if
or an expiring
everything
contract.
goes, but if nothing goes the way they want it to go in camp, they're the first pick in the waiver wire. There's going to be a ton of players on the waiver wire, especially with this flat cap. There's going to be a lot of pretty good names that are probably going to be put on that waiver wire that the Canadians could pick up. They get the first pick.
Yeah, and if things aren't going the way they want it to go, they'll just grab one or two guys off that waiver wire. And sorry, Barron, sorry, you guys, you're going to the Laval. Work on your game down there. And once we see you improving in Laval, we'll bring you up and throw this guy we got on waivers back on waivers.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we're pretty much near the end of our time because you got stuff you need to get done. It's close to an hour now. So any final thoughts?
No, expect Montreal, like I said earlier, to have a really good offensive year. I think you're going to see some guys really pick their game up this year offensively. I think you're going to see Suzuki, both Suzuki and Caulfield, get close to where we think they're going to be. So yeah, I just think, but don't expect too much. Like don't expect. I think Montreal is going to be one of those teams that could come out of the gate really well, and then fizz right off is what I think is going to happen. And just be patient with the team. It's going to be an exciting team, but keep your expectations low. And even though Price isn't going to be there, I think their offense can keep them in that top 10. I still don't think I don't think they're a top 5 drafting team. I don't think they're going to finish in the bottom 5. I really don't.
They might. It depends on who's hurt, when they're hurt, how long they're out, who they trade, who they keep. That kind of thing.
But definitely top 10. So I guess my final thought is keep your expectations low and just enjoy the season.
So it's like that Mad TV show, Lowered Expectations.
Correct.
That's the worst dating site ever. Unless you've been on Tinder. So I've heard.
That's how my wife found me. She lowered her expectations, and this is what she got. She's been regretting it ever since.
They always do, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, well. There's 2 doors. She can go out either one of them.
All right. And for me, for a final thought on this, I'm expecting, like you, to see an improved offensive output. Defensively and goaltending wise, I think they're going to drag the team down to that top 10 pick. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say the power play is going to drastically improve to 17% by the end of the year.
Yes.
Which would still put them, I think, in the bottom 3rd. But still, they're not the dead last power play anymore. They'll be, I don't know, 22nd? There we go. Yeah, I'll say around 22nd.
That's 4 points higher than last year.
And who knows, maybe a couple of those power play goals will be the difference in winning a few more games. Get around 30 wins this year. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but hey,
they had last year, like 21,
22. It would be an improvement over last year, but it would still give you that bottom 10 or that top 10 pick.
Yep.
So that's it for me. And I want to thank have sent us these comments. Ellen Keefe, thank you for sending us that message on Logan Mayu, saying that he still has the shoulder injury and he is still out. We really appreciate that. People who are on the ground in all these different towns across Canada and the United States, Europe, keep sending us this information. Keep sending us these text messages, these emails. We love hearing from you guys. We love interacting with you. Again, this is what makes it fun. And the Montreal Canadiens community as a whole is a great one to interact with. Be sure to check out other podcasts like Tony Marinero Show, which we've both had the opportunity to join. Locked On Canadians, Happy Hour, the boys over at Gibby and Lewis are back with Vinny, so go check them out.
Raw Knuckles podcast with Chris and Mike.
Yeah, Tim.
Tim, that's it. Tim Stapleton. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names, Tim.
Just
don't
yeah.
hurt
So
me.
yeah. So the boys at Have a Listen, Raw Knuckles, all that. Go listen to a bunch of different shows. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. Interact with everybody. That's what makes this whole thing fun. This year is not going to be that great on the ice, so we should all just kind of stick around and enjoy it. So again, thank you all for listening. And remember, if you were talking about it, so are we. And for those of you still on our live, I want to thank you guys for being on the live. We're going to start putting out more of a warning next time when we go on live. So maybe next week we'll be a little bit better with it. So again, thank you very much.